Okay, welcome back. Oh, should I say I'm back? If there's any issues on the audio, please uh, let me know in the live chat because I can't hear it this side. I'll just leave a little message on there. I'm trying to keep all this stuff I've got this end down to a minimum, purely because my bandwidth is pretty naff and not a lot I can do with it this end. But basically, this conversation today is Spain a better option for Brits with non-EU partners? And the reason I'm bringing this up because I know there is some people looking at coming to Spain and other locations in Europe rather than the UK, but also there's people actually coming out of the UK. This is something I don't think anybody even really discusses. Here, for example, where we are, there's several couples I know that have relocated from the UK to Spain for various reasons, but most of them are down to immigration. And it's not that they don't have a legal right. They already got through to living in the UK, but the problem is they don't feel, well, from my opinion of how they feel, they don't feel that they can trust the UK. And I know you see the tabloids come out with these stories relating to some people being rejected after being in the UK for 20 odd years. And there's a lot of things where they're going through the fine tooth comb trying to find something that could actually boot people out that have been there for long term. Thanks Sterling Mad. He's been keeping an eye on my audio for me because I've already reset this once. But the big thing that bothers me personally is I don't know what direction the UK is currently going in. I don't feel my kids would get the same life that they would get in Spain. Financially, would we be better off in the UK compared to Spain? I would say it's difficult to tell. When I'm working there, I have a good lifestyle. If you've watched my other stuff, the companies I work for have given me cars and all the other bits and pieces for working for them. I generally have no cost of living because I spend most of my time in hotels and all the food and everything else is covered. So my costs are relatively zero except for flights back to Spain. But if we settled in the UK, we're probably talking 200,000 for a house. That's £200,000 worth of debt, which would take how many years to pay off? Because it's not really 200,000, it's probably 350,000 once you've added all the interest on over the time period. But one thing I will say though, here in Spain, where we are, La Mata, you can get a 3-bedroom apartment for 80,000 with its underground parking as well. Euros, and I could pay that off within probably 2-3 years. That's one of the plus sides. UK, you'd have to, for getting somewhere half decent, I would say it's probably cost me about 200k, and then all the interest on top of that. I'll be locked into that for probably 10 to 15 years, even though I aggressively paid it off. That's one of the problems that I see in the UK these days. Another thing I've seen over the years is the change in mentality, especially when the Brexit come out. The Brexit seems to have got so aggressive. And I know some people have said, well, it's just online. It's not. Some of the stuff that have gone on in the UK over recent years, people have changed. I do think people have changed, but also think my perspective's changed as well because I've been out of the country for nearly a decade. When I go back, I can see how people are treated differently, how they see people differently. And there just seems to be some changes in there, and it's not all bad, but at the same time, it's not the way it was. I think it was actually better going back 10, 15 years. I think it was, I don't know what's gone wrong. I think the problems are the UK economy isn't as good as they like to boast. The there's a drive to zero-hour contracts. There's a lot of zero-hour contracts, and there's been a bit of a shrinkage in those contracts in the last few months, because I think they've started to not want to be associated with it's businesses don't associated with these types of contracts. I I think people should be guaranteed a minimum amount of work, and the reason being is that if you're in the unemployment loop, which is basically you're lucky to get seasonal work, you're lucky to get contract work, yeah, everything is on a fixed basis. So if you're trying to get out of that loop, having a zero-hour contract for your work means that you may not earn any money. They might employ you for 1 hour, which means your benefits have been cut off. At the same time, you're not earning any money either. And then you've got to reapply for this 6-week thing. And that's why I don't like zero-hour contracts. I think people need to know where they are on a week-to-week basis, the same way the system, the benefit system was set up. Not that I'm a fan of people claiming benefits either. It's just that I think that the zero-hour contracts have created more problems for the people in that situation, even if you want to work out of it. In Spain, not really a problem because nobody gives you nothing. You've got to be here, I think, 8 years before anybody gives you anything anyway. So because you've wiped out that benefit thing totally, it's not as much of an issue, because at the end of the day, yes, you're not going to make money. Nobody's going to pay you to sit on your backside in Spain. But I also think that because the work is slightly different, the pay isn't as big, but there seems to be more regular work, if you know what I mean. People find work and they seem to have the work all year round, or and then you've got the seasonal stuff, etc., etc. But in the UK, I find that a lot of this contract stuff, because it costs more to live in the UK, it just becomes a cycle. It's very easy for people to get trapped in it, and that's one of the reasons I wouldn't want to buy another house in the UK. I wouldn't want to get into that hamster wheel thing. Spain, I can do it because it's not as expensive, but B, I can hop on a plane into the UK, into the Middle East, or wherever I need to be to make some bigger money, to bring up our life in Spain. I also know changes in the schooling system. You might have noticed it yourself, because in the Philippines, as well as Spain, the teachers will hug the kids, but also they seem more at ease with the kids, where I find in the UK it's become more formal. People are paranoid about going near kids and stuff like that. I don't like that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's normal. I don't think it's good for the next generations. I find in Spain, family orientation is the prime thing. Philippines, family orientation is the big thing. Rory Meggs joined us. Hi. Yeah, thanks. Much better audio. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for telling me, because it's, like I said, I can't hear it. Because I'm trying to keep the audio back so I don't run it back to myself, because I'm limiting the amount of bandwidth I use up or down. But yeah, I'm for family life. I'll be honest with you. Now, people say, well, that's all well and good. Well, I come from a corporate background. I've worked with some of the biggest firms in the UK related to facilities management. I've worked with, my clients have been RBS Bank, Siemens Turbines, AXA Insurance, Norwich Union, the big supermarkets. I've had Sainsbury's. I've managed Matalan stores, not the stores themselves, but maintenance of entire areas and entire regions. I've had some very big clients, and I've done the corporate life, but the corporate life is okay to a point. You know, you're taken care of, but you have no life beyond the people that you work around, and then you might see your family at the weekend. And it doesn't matter if they're in the Philippines or whatever. The life that most of the guys I work with is very similar to mine anyway. You're never home. And that's why I've sort of stepped back now, and I'm looking at, right, what businesses can I do from home? Because I want to stay at home. We'll need a bigger apartment. I'll be honest with you, I need a bigger apartment. I might end up getting two eventually, one just as a base for doing things like these podcast type things, and the other one for obviously living it. But the point being is I'm changing the way I live. And Spain for us has been a very good transition. The headaches has come from the paperwork side, but in all honesty, the Spanish have the same bureaucracy as well. So I have no issue with that. With the UK, when I'm hearing people that have had problems with getting passports processed and documents delayed, extra paperwork asked for that's not actually requirements and all this sort of stuff, do I really want to bring my family into the UK with the risk of uncertainty there, plus all this extra criteria? The answer is no. I mean, at the end of the day, I've paid my way for a decade outside the UK. I've paid my way since I left school. I've always been in work. I've also always had education. I paid myself through college. I have not relied on the state at any time. Yet it feels like you're almost an alien in your own country because you married somebody from outside the, well, I would say just the non-EUs. I'd say EU, because a lot of people feeling uncomfortable right now, and I know the media are loving it. They're selling newspapers and whatever with all this negative stuff they're posting out there, but I don't see enough positive stuff. And I know, spending time with people in the UK that are from Poland and Portugal and a few other locations, some people don't feel comfortable. There's like with the Brexit, there's been something sort of changed. I think it's sad. I do think it's sad because for me, I was born and bred military. We're used to working as a collective. We're used to, everybody's the same. Even, my childhood, I spent all over the world. I've been many countries. My father is in the forces, and I didn't see color or anything else. That's something that only really become an issue when I went back to the UK. And when I say I didn't see color, it's not that I can't tell the difference between people. It's the fact is we just seen people because everyone has to get on. Everyone has to function. And I think these days there's too much time for a lot of people to put a lot of negative stuff out there. And I think that's where one of the big problems is. Myself, I feel that my kids were better in Spain, but also we've got other people that have moved over here from the UK. There's people currently looking at moving over here from the UK. Now, these are people that are married to people from Thailand, Philippines, and some other countries. They actually feel that they'll have a better life in Spain because they're worried about the way things are getting processed. And I can understand it because I'm in some of the forums that go on. Sterling Mad, good points. Thank you. I'm in some of the forums that a lot of people don't have access to because, as you probably notice, I'm quite vocal. So I do get invited into some of the forums related to immigration, to how people are getting documents processed in the sense of what problems they're having and what documents they need. Because obviously you go, oh, we need a form 312, and we need this, we need that. A lot of time, you need to know exactly what people want before you arrive. Now the processes are getting harder and harder, and I see the responses people are getting back from like the Home Office and things, and it's becoming a lot more difficult. These guys are not people looking to go to the UK and live on benefits or anything else like that. These are people who actually work. These are people that are just trying to keep their families together. And that's, for me, that's a bizarre thing. It seems like Brits married to non-EUs have been punished for the open door policy of the EU. And I know that sounds a bit blunt, but I think that's exactly it, because it's the one set of figures that can be adjusted. Because if you can find enough reasons to reject, you can get the figures down. But at the same time, non-EU citizens coming to the UK, not as difficult. Um, well, sorry, it's far more difficult to find ways to reject people because it's all part of the same EU system. And I will say that from my perspective in Spain, because they don't give you anything, that suits me. I don't want nothing. What I want is a country where my kids can be brought up with a safe environment and knowing that my family are not going to worry about what the Home Office decides next month. Um, Spain is a better country for that. I'll be honest. 'Cause you got to bear in mind, if they're not giving you nothing, there's no threat to them. It ain't costing them nothing. The UK, I can understand some of it, but I also think that a lot of people are being punished for political reasons, and I think that's unfair. And if somebody's anti-benefit cheat, I'll be the guy. I'll be the front of the queue because I hate it. I pay a lot of tax in the UK. I pay way more than I should do. That's in my mindset anyway. Because like last year, I paid tax and social security in Spain, and I also paid it in the UK. I paid it twice. You're not supposed to pay it twice, but because the contracts I was on didn't recognize my self-employment in Spain, I had to run it through a company in the UK, which meant I had to declare in both countries and pay it twice. That's something I'm trying to sort out in Madrid at the moment, trying to see if they can get their money back. So at the end of the day, I'm not trying to avoid paying tax. I'm not trying to take from the system. I am actually double paying it. So that's why I have no issues with people like myself that actually want to help the system. I want to make La Mata a nice little bustling town, and for me, I think Spain, the school here is fantastic. It's very common here for the kids to be hugged and kissed by the teachers. They're very friendly. The teachers want you involved in everything. We get updates every day. They send us like they've got an app. They'll actually send us photos of stuff in the class and what they're doing, and it's very, very hands-on, and I like that. I didn't get any of that with my daughter in the UK. And I don't blame the school. I think the problem in the UK is got so paranoid and so bureaucratic. Like organizing a trip with the school becomes so much of a headache in the UK. A lot of schools just don't do it. My kids here, they've been to theme parks. Last week they were at British theatres where they're doing, I think they had, what was it? There was like Pirates and something else. Last week they had there's a festival in Torrevieja, so they were dressed as Peter Pan and they were doing a parade. Before that, they were at Alicante Castle. Before that, they've had a marathon, a school marathon, run around the school. They have in the summertime, there's the what do you call it, foam party. There's a lot of activities all the time. There's always something going on. After school activities every day. There is something, very, very proactive with the kids. And I think there in the UK, there's been so much focus on, oh, it's not a school, it's an academy, it's this. You know what? Educate the children. That's the only job we're asking you to do. Educate the children. You can fluff all this up because every time you move it, what they do is they shift statistics and make it all a bit blurry, so you don't really get anything for another 5 years. How do I know? Because I used to work for some of the organizations where if you do this, you'll see this in the UK. They have what they call local working, then they have like central working. So what happens is they'll have an office that is for housing, say. They'll have it in like the county hall, say. So you get a new councillor, a new set of councillors. So they'll go, oh, we'll have area working. So they'll close that one and open 5 satellite offices in the areas where the housing is. Then 5 years later, the next elections, they'll go, oh, that didn't work. Let's have a central one. And they'll move it back again. And then 5 years later, it'll change again. That is consistently the sort of stuff that goes on in the UK, which is why you never really see any improvements. Because if you go through the patterns, nothing's actually changed. All they do is they make decisions. The decision's not actually about improving performance, it's to show change. And that's where a lot of this stuff fails, because it is about just showing change. Because I don't know I'm going to be in the next 5 years, but if I got some change, it's going to keep everybody busy till my next election. Okay, enough about the politics side of it. But I do think the cost of living is lower in Spain. I do think that the environment is better. You've got I mean, where we are, it's a lot more in the boondocks, in the sense that we've got the beach on one side, nature park on the other. We're about 15-20 minutes from Torrevieja town, which is a bit bigger. We can go up to Alicante in 45 minutes, but we're not really a bustling location except in holiday time. Ah, hi, John. John Parrish joins us tonight. Yeah, John probably gets this as well, about the way the UK's changed in recent years. It's not the same as it used to be. I mean, I'd say me and John are probably very similar in the type of work we do, and we're sort of becoming dinosaurs. But at the same time, the people coming in beneath us, not in beneath that we think we're better than them, but beneath us in the sense that we're heading towards finishing our work career, and they're coming in their early years, haven't got the same background and skill sets. And I think that's another problem in the UK that's festering at the moment. But I do think, though, Spain offers a lot more. As long as you can get your work sorted, the rest of it just drops in. Now, here where we are in La Mata, if I make, because we're actually changing things at the moment, I can see the thing is I can get contract work like no tomorrow. I've got 6 companies that want me to go at the UK, and I'm trying to avoid that. But if I can get it sorted so we're earning at least 1,600 euros a month in Spain, then the immigration guys are happy, and more importantly, we can afford to live. The reality is we only actually need 1,000 euros. I know it doesn't sound a lot, but it's reality. That's all we actually need. It's not a lot of money. In the UK, that would probably cover my rent these days. Yeah, you know, getting a 3-bedroom house in Worcester, you're probably looking at £600-700. It's shot up. I mean, when I left in 2007, you could get a house for about 400. So it's nearly doubled in that time, the cost of rent. I was saying, if you bought a house, you're talking 200,000 plus about 150k the bank would want over that period of the loan. So it's 350,000 you would give to the bank. So if you could actually get a lower cost of living in Spain, you, instead of having that huge debt, you get a place paid off, and instead of giving the bank such a huge chunk of interest, you can put that away in savings. Now, I do peer-to-peer lending, where I currently get 10.4% return per annum. So if you imagine, if you accumulated over the next 10 years £10,000 a year, sounds a lot, but if you focus on it, it does start to roll itself, because your first year will be pretty hard, but then you've got that 10.4% on the 10,000 you put in there. So we just call it £1,000. So going at year 2, you've got 11,000, and then going forward, you know, so you get to a point where you don't actually have to put any more money in it, but you get it rolling. There's your pension pot. Simple as that. It's not a big deal. But doing that in the UK, I think it's a lot harder, because the costs are harder. Commuting is more expensive. I don't know how much fuel is in the UK at the moment. We're only paying just over €1. I think I'm paying €6 for diesel at the moment. But fuel's been cheaper, and okay, work's a bit harder to find. But if you work online, if you teach English, if you do some work that can be done remotely, even for the companies you work for now, because I know, like, for example, Carillion, a company I was working for before, they have cancelled a lot of their leases. They didn't renew them. There's a lot of the buildings they pulled out of in London, etc., and put people working from home, because at the end of the day, it's floor space. They don't want to spend the money. So there is always something there, but half the battle is adjusting your life to suit it. Because you do have to make adjustments. You may want to, like myself, I can run a national contract as a facilities manager, but at the same time, I could teach English in Spain. Completely different, not earning the same sort of money, but one offers good money, the other one offers good quality of life in the sense that I get family life. So there is those transition things. But I also think some of the guys coming out of the Philippines at the moment are to go to, because a lot of these guys had originally planned on going to the UK. The guys I've been talking to, and some of the stuff that's happened to them is basically because this 18,600 rule come in. It's sort of scuppered it a bit because financially they're stable. Financially they've got enough money because they've already got the house paid for in the UK. But the problem is their pension doesn't go as high as 18.6, but they don't need that amount of money anyway because they have no mortgage. But this is the problem. There's a lot of stuff. The sterling mad diesel price in UK is £1.20. There you go. So even as a euro comparison, I'm getting it cheaper. But yeah, a lot of the guys are being scuppered. Now, bearing in mind, they've already paid their way. They're retired, a lot of the guys. So they've already paid their way and got their pension and stuff. And, they went to the Philippines or wherever they're gone, settled there, and then thought, you know what, things are getting a bit more expensive here because obviously I think the sterling and euros sort of had about 15% change in the last 18 months. And I know when I was in the Philippines, my exchange rate when I was first there was 98 to the pound. I think it's around 62 to the pound at the moment. So there's a lot of things going on that people will sort of go, oh, well, you left the country. And I was like, well, they already paid their taxes. They already paid to the point they've got their own pension. They've got their own income. They've already paid what they owed the government and more. But at the same time, they're now being blocked from bringing their wives back to the UK because this sort of like I said, what I see is the EU door was left wide open. So the only people they could target is either completely foreign or the Brits, non-EU partners and families, which is rather sad because it's like it's like if you work in the Middle East. A lot of these guys have paid their way. You're pretty debt free. But if they decided to go back to the Philippines for 5 years or whatever, then go home, they might struggle to get back in because you don't have a year's pay slips and all this sort of stuff. Even though financially, they don't really need it. They've got pensions and stuff already set up, but it may not reach the 18,600 threshold, which they don't need anyway. This is the bizarre thing. Where Spain is looking for specific amounts of income per month. And I think, I'll say don't quote me on this because the reason being is it depends where you go. Person, it may be about 1,200 euros. For a couple, about 1,400, 1,600 euros. And then above that might be 2,000, 2,400, depending on how many kids they want. But I know locally here in Torrevieja, somebody's was 1,600 for a family of 4. So it does go up and down depending who you speak to, where they are, and how they interpret the rules. So what's that? Let me get my calculator out. So all they're asking for is 1,600 a month. All right, so that's 1,600 times 12 is 19,200 euros. So that's 19,200 euros income equals. So I'll get it to calculate for me. Euros. Which comes in at 16,580 £82 in comparison. So it's a few £1,000s cheaper than the UK. And that's for a family of four. The UK is 18,600, and then they add an extra couple of thousand for each child. So I think it works up to about £24,000 with a couple of kids, plus all the expensive processing fees. Spain's a bit cheaper to process as well. So there's lots of reasons to come to Spain, but I'm struggling to find a lot of reasons to go back to the UK. And I think that's the big thing from being in the middle here, because I've got a lot of the guys I talk to out in the Philippines. I've got guys I speak to in the UK from all walks of life. I talk to people right across Europe. I'm in some of the Brit Remain, the EU Remain groups. I listen to some of the Brexit stuff as well, because at the end of the day, I just absorb the information from everywhere, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be taking a sole point of view from any direction, because the problem you've got with that is you become blind to the other person's perspective or the other people's perspective. I mean, it's like this, the bus thing, you know, £350 million for the bus is, you know, for the NHS. It's like, why would they even expect that would be spent on the NHS? That's my view. But at the same time, the arguments are being, well, the money wasn't there, and it's, you know, coming in from all sorts. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, that one, in my viewpoint. The point is, what we need to look at is the transition will probably go ahead anyway, but my main concern is how it affects people. Because at the end of the day, the guys I speak to in Spain, I'm not talking one or two people, I mean, like I said, I mean, a lot of these groups, there's thousands of people that simply do not want to go back to the UK. They do not want to go there. And like they say, they paid their way. They've already paid for everything. They've already earned their pension. It's not a right. It's something they paid for during their working lives. Why should they be forced back to the UK? And I'd have to agree with them on that. At the end of the day, it's their money. So there's a lot of people that don't want to go back. And my personal viewpoint, I call it the factory. I don't mind going to the UK to work. I don't mind wherever I'm working. But is it home anymore? I'd say it's changed too much. My daughter's there, my parents are there, my siblings are there. But beyond that, it doesn't have the same commitment for me, because my childhood was not in the UK. My childhood was in Germany, it was in Hong Kong, it was in Ireland, it was all over the place. But at the same time, a lot of the reasons that would have made me stay there have changed. A lot of things have changed in recent years. And I think that's the big problem. And that's why I see Spain as a better alternative. As long as you can get the language down, you can find work. Because if you can speak English and Spanish, there's work. In the same way, Germany is another country I would seriously look at. Why? Because I spent 6 years there. I like Germany, and I know some people complain about German mentality. I have no issue with it. I actually quite like things structured that way. I like the you know, where I used to live. It was a nice area, nice facilities, beautiful location. I wouldn't have a problem going to Germany either, although it does get a bit of snow there. Although we did have 1 year, we did have 1 day of snow here, the first time in just over 90 years. So yeah, anybody got any questions? It seems like I'm saying everything. Does anybody want to ask anything? It's all a bit quiet. I know it's one of those topics that people either love or hate as well, because you either understand it and can see it from other people's viewpoints, or a lot of people are so locked into the politics of it, which has been driven a lot by the media. I don't think the UK will be better off without the EU, purely because politics never puts anything in our pockets. It always takes it out. So even if this exit happens, I would not expect there to be less politicians. I would expect what you'll see is there'll be a transition period with new jobs created to keep a lot of these people in jobs with new titles. It's one of the problems I have in the UK, in all honesty, is the everything's become so top heavy. You got a lot of people patting themselves on the back at the top while making cuts at the bottom. It's just the way the business has gone. And I say business, it's not just business, it's the Ministry of Defence, it's everything, all the way through, social housing, everything. Everything's become a business, but I find there's too many people sitting there with pie charts and things, and not enough people actually proactively doing anything. But anyway, I'm going to leave this one here, quite simply because it's quite a specific topic, this one. And I thank everyone for joining us. I just thought I'd try one on a specific topic, and then I'll do a general one. I'll do a general one after this because I'm just going to warm my coffee back up because I've kept talking. It's gone cold. So I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'll just wrap this one up, have a quick coffee, and we'll have a general chat. All right, thanks for watching.